Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I want to talk about a basketball story that kind of came across my radar over the last, couple hours, and that is that John Wall, college basketball legend, NBA All-Star, officially announced his retirement. Okay, now some of you are probably sitting there saying, I didn't even know he was really playing anymore. That's not a knock. He had not played since the 2023 season. He had dealt with some injuries. I think 2 or 3 times he's tried to get back. And I think his body, it's crazy because we still think of him as the baby-faced assassin from Kentucky. I think the body just frankly just kind of gave up on him. And, to play basketball at that level, I just don't think at 32, 33, 34, whatever he is, he can keep doing it. So John Wall announces his retirement. And I think what's interesting to me, bottom line is I think obviously there's a huge segment of the world that thinks of him as the Washington Wizard, #1 overall pick, 5-time All-Star. Listen, he never had like any crazy iconic moments. Maybe he had that one buzzer beater in the playoffs. But I mean, you think about where the Wizards were when he was there versus where they are now. I think things were better when John Wall was the face of the franchise than they are right now. Probably the least relevant franchise in all of professional basketball. When he was there, they were at least making the playoff year over year over year. With that said, this is a college sports show. And I want to talk a little bit about John Wall, the college basketball player, because to me, in my opinion, I think you could absolutely make the argument, and I'm about to make the argument here over the next 10 minutes or so. I think he's actually the most influential college basketball player of the 21st century. It sounds crazy, only spent 1 year at Kentucky, but when you look at the foundation he set, when you look at what he stood for and continues to stand for, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that he changed college basketball. And I think, frankly, in a more positive way, he made college basketball a better sport, not just because of the points and the rebounds and the assists, but because of the impact that he had. By the way, I should mention this, and I didn't even tell producer Matt this. I don't know how many people that watch this show even know this. One of my first big accomplishments as a sports media member, I wrote a book about Kentucky basketball called One in Fun. It was about that 2010 team. I interviewed John Wall. I interviewed Eric Bledsoe. I interviewed Patrick Patterson. I interviewed John Calipari. I interviewed Dwayne Peavy, who was the associate AD at that point, who now is the AD at DePaul. So one, you could check it out. But two, I have some credibility talking about John Wall because I did a big story for FoxSports.com, and then I wrote a book about that season, okay? But as far as why John Wall, in my opinion, is probably the most influential college basketball player maybe of the 21st century, I think it's a couple things. Because people are going to say, well, Tyler Hansbrough played 4 years, and Zach Edey won 2 national play. Okay, I get it, okay? And Purdue fans will get in the chat, and they'll get mad, and they'll get angry, whatever. But here's the bottom line. Couple things with John Wall. John Wall changed Kentucky, and John Wall changed college basketball. What do I mean by that? John Wall changed Kentucky from this perspective. I think it's easy to forget before John Calipari and in turn John Wall got there, Kentucky basketball was not the program and not the brand that it is now. Now, Kentucky basketball has always been maybe the biggest, kind of brand in college basketball. But at the same time, and everybody in the media will acknowledge this, my buddy Matt Jones talks about this all the time. Kentucky was kind of the school. They had a lot of good college players, but there weren't a ton of NBA stars, Jamal Mashburn, but there weren't very many. And it was kind of the school where the coach was bigger than the program. You had Pitino, you had Rupp, you had Joe B. Hall. And it wasn't a place that produced a lot of NBA players. And so when John Wall came, it was, Matt Jones always says this, it was never the quote unquote cool school. And then John Wall comes, he does that John Wall dance at Big Blue Madness, and it just makes Kentucky the cool school. It's the school that everybody wants to go to. It's the school that everybody wants to play at. It's the school where everybody wants to be the next John Wall. And so you have that component of it. I think the other thing too, and it's easy to forget this, is that John Wall, when he got to Kentucky, college basketball was just a completely different sport. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'll tell you what, producer Matt. Before we get to the other part, again, John Wall made Kentucky the cool school. And you go back to that year, go back to all the big games. The UNC game where he hits a buzzer beater. where he goes coast to coast. I mean, where he goes coast to coast, big dunk. The Louisville game where DeMarcus Cousins famously got in a fight and was basically, choking out a guy on the court. Every single game was an event. Every single game was big. By the way, Mississippi State, the Call Me game. Kentucky fans don't know what I'm talking about. Mississippi State in the SEC tournament. I'll tell you what, producer Matt, the Kentucky Athletic Department, when John Wall was inducted into the Kentucky Hall of Fame, put out a great highlight reel. We have approval to use this, YouTube overlords. Matt, play the 1-minute video of just everything John Wall did at Kentucky.
John Wall is a very competitive guy. I mean, very competitive. He wants to be the best point guard ever. You have to have a guy that can go make you a play. John Wall can go make you a play. Lone Harris back to Wall. Wall's going to force one. And it goes! That's what they call wall to wall. And now Wall. The win!
First pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Washington Wizards select John Wall from the University of Kentucky.
By the way, I missed 2 huge games when I was just talking about the big games. One, if you remember, he did not play his first game in Kentucky. The second game comes in, hits a buzzer beater to beat Miami of Ohio. 2, the first big game was against UConn at Madison Square Garden. I was at that game. It was one of the most electric atmospheres I've ever seen. And it was kind of like Kentucky's comeback moment. Okay. And so you talk about the impact that he had on the state of Kentucky. It is unbelievable. Okay. I want to talk about the impact that he had on college basketball. But while we're talking to Kentucky, I should mention, by the way, for people who have missed the news, we are working with Circa Casino and Sportsbook. They are the official hotel and gambling partner of the Aaron Torres pod. Producer Matt and I are going to be in Vegas this coming week. But why I bring it up, it is because Circa has opened, how about this, a brand new sportsbook in Franklin, Kentucky. They are having the official launch party this weekend, the Mint Kentucky Downs. It will now be Circa Sportsbook, and they're having a big party this weekend, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. They're having a watch party for the Sam Houston Western Kentucky game, which is a week 0 game. And I mentioned this off the top. We're going to be doing live shows from that sportsbook in the coming months as we get closer to basketball. But anybody who goes to that sportsbook, I got a deal for you. This is what you got to do. If you go to the sportsbook, take a picture, tag me on Twitter at Aaron_Torres, tag Circa on Twitter at Circa Sports, I will send you a free Hope and Pope t-shirt if you're a Kentucky fan. Now, if you're a Louisville fan, a Tennessee fan, an IU fan, we'll get you a free t-shirt as well. We'll have to find something more creative, okay? But I bring it up because they are our partner. They love the presence that we have in Kentucky, but we got to show them just how big this presence is. We appreciate your support. We wouldn't have the deal without you guys. But yeah, Circa Sportsbook, we're so fired up to be working with them. We'll be in Vegas this week. But again, launch party 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Franklin, Kentucky on Saturday. All right, John Wall. Let's keep going with John Wall because I do want to continue the conversation on him. And I do think it's easy to forget this part of it as well. When I say he's the most influential player of college basketball in the 21st century, again, Carolina fans say, what about Tyler Hansbrough? Purdue fans will definitely get mad and say, what about Zach Edey, 2-time national player of the year? Here's why John Wall is, to me, the most impactful. It is because he basically made being a one-and-done mainstream, okay? And this sounds crazy to people from a different era, but remember, the one-and-done rule came into play in the 06-07 season, okay? And it was kind of this, like, scarlet letter on college basketball. By the way, this is what my book, One and Fun, is all about. I'll throw a link to One and Fun in the the comment section or whatever, because it is still available on Amazon. But anyone who was like a quote unquote one and done, it was like this scarlet letter to have on your team. Like, oh my God, he wants to go to college for 1 year and then go to the NBA. That's not what college basketball is about. College basketball is about education. It's about the name on the front of the jersey. And I think a lot of the primetime schools, the premier schools, really played into that. Duke, for a long time. Remember, Coach K threw a fit the first time that his players declared for the draft before exhausting their eligibility. 99, Elton Brand went pro, But then William Avery ends up going pro that same year, and he basically disowned William Avery. Roy Williams, we have no interest in these one and done guys. I mean, there's a famous story of John Wall visiting and Roy Williams basically giving him the cold shoulder. So John Wall, with the help of John Calipari, and I know that the things didn't end well for Calipari at Kentucky, but you cannot deny that those two made it mainstream. Those two made it okay to say, you know what? I'm going to come to school for a year. And guess what? I'm going to be a great student. John Wall had the highest GPA on that team. I'm going to be a great member of the community. The fans will still love me, even if they know I'm only coming for 1 year. And I can remain beloved, even if I only stay for 1 year. By the way, Matt, you could pop up the comment in there that says that one listener hopes that John Wall comes back to Kentucky in a coaching role. I mean, if you had said that in 2009, and this sounds so crazy, this sounds so stupid. This is from Brad. He said, I would like to see John Wall in some sort of coaching role at Kentucky. Brad, you speak for most of Big Blue Nation, if not all of Big Blue Nation. But in 2009, it was this thing, not at Kentucky, but on a national scale of like, oh my God, he's going to come for 1 year and leave, and Kentucky fans are just okay with that? And it's like, yeah, because he's really good, and he's going to make $100 million, if not more, playing in the NBA. He should go pro. And so Coach Cal was the innovator of that. But also with John Wall, and I've said this, and again, this is part of the book, is that, like, I don't know if Kentucky becomes the Kentucky of John Calipari if John Wall doesn't work out. In other words, and I don't think the one and done era plays out the same if John Wall doesn't work out. Like, if John Wall comes to Kentucky and he plays well, but his teammates don't like him, and he doesn't really get into being part of the community, and he, kind of has a holier than thou attitude, and Kentucky loses in the second round of the tournament, like, I don't know that the whole Calipari era plays out the way that it does. But he comes there, he's instantly the best player in college basketball. On top of being the best player in college basketball, Kentucky's awesome. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kentucky fans, 34-3, I believe. SEC regular season champs, SEC tournament champs, Elite Eight, where, we know what happened in the Elite Eight. But I just bring it up because if it goes sideways, does Coach Cal have that sales pitch for the next 10 or 15 years? I don't know. But what I do know is John Wall came there. He was a great member of that community. As Brad said, he wants him to come back and coach. I know that John Wall has a great relationship with Mark Pope. And so I do believe he is the most impactful college basketball player of the 21st century. The first real, we're openly, again, that we're just openly acknowledging that he's a one and done. There was Greg Oden and Kevin Durant, Derrick Rose, etc. But John Wall was the first one that came somewhere, it was embedded in the community, was loved by the community, left, still I don't know. It's just, again, I know that our under 30 crowd just thinks this is the craziest conversation in the history of sports. But go back to 2008, go back to 2009, 2010 when John Wall was at Kentucky. If this is the player empowerment era that we're living in right now, guess what? I think that, the late 2000s into the 2010s was the coaches empowerment era. And coaches wanted you to come, and they wanted you to stay, and they wanted to be in control. And John Wall and John Calipari basically completely changed that. So John Wall, wish him luck in retirement. I know he's doing stuff in the media, and I'm sure he'll have a very successful future. Bright guy, like I said, highest GPA on that Kentucky team. I know he's a father now. I know he's got a lot going on in his life, but just want to go ahead and congratulate him on retirement and an incredible year. By the way, producer Matt saying, this is one of those officially makes me feel old. I remember doing the John Wall dance with my basketball team in middle school. Well, guess what, producer Matt? I wasn't in middle school when John Wall was at Kentucky, so that gives you an idea of how old I am. I don't want to say I'm much older than John Wall, but I am older than John Wall. So if that makes you feel old, I don't even know what to tell you about how I feel. John Wall retiring from the NBA, from basketball, and wish him luck in the rest of his career.